Good morning, Charles Van Morgan. Boots on the ground here at the Knox County Sheriff's Department shooting incident in Knox County, Tennessee a few weeks ago in December. So we're boots on the ground reporting on that. It was in December, I believe the 23rd of last year, where we had a shooting incident here in Knox County by law enforcement. So we're boots on the ground covering that. The names of the deputies involved in the shooting incident justifiably have not been released, and it is being investigated by the Knox County Sheriff's Department. So we're here on the scene. Welcome. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the ICE shooting incident again, some new developments that have come up. People have found out a way to weaponize the legal system, apparently. So we're boots on the ground. This is where a shooting incident happened in Knox County, Tennessee. We're going to show you the scene here. Come on board. This is Charles Van Morgan, the Charles Van Morgan Show, right here at an incident. Two deputy sheriffs here in Knox County shot and killed a woman. It's still under investigation at this Weigels at the intersection of Central Avenue Pike here in Knox County, Tennessee. So unlike other news channels, this is unbridled news. We're telling you the truth with boots on the ground, where the incident took place at. And we're going to talk about income inequality and the ICE situation out in Minnesota. Some new developments in that case. There have been some lawyers have posted some videos about a way around the law, and here recently they posted it just for a few hours, and then they deleted the video because it's a representation of how the judicial system doesn't work for us, but it works for them because they get around the law and use it as a weapon. So they're weaponizing the legal system and trying to prevent ICE agents from being able to lawfully and legally execute their duties by causing them problems in different cities and states. And an attorney came up with a novel ideal about how to weaponize the judicial system, put out a video, and it was on last night, and within a few hours, I can't find it. I believe it's already been taken down because I bet he's been warned, probably by the Trump administration, people in the Department of Justice, that won't fly, and it is going against his legal ethics, I believe. So we're here, boots on the ground, Knox County, Tennessee, at a shooting that took place December the 23rd, 2025, at about 4:15 p.m. Officers responded to the call of a suicidal woman at this location, at this Weigels here, and she apparently had a gun, and they came to the scene and had a standoff until about 10:53. So they received the call at 4:40, and then at 10:53 something changed. We don't know what. We haven't had any body camera released or anything. At 10:53, two deputies fired shots, killing the woman. Now, according to them, the initial call, she did have a gun. Whether she had one or not, I don't know. But what we do know is at 4:40 they received a call, suicidal woman armed with a gun at this Weigels. Evidently, they contacted the law enforcement in this area, the highway patrol, and they stopped cars from coming in the area and closed down the roads, and had a standoff from 4:40 until 10:53. At 10:53, two deputies evidently fired shots at this location, killing the woman. Her name was Ginger Phillips. She was 57 years old, apparently suicidal, according to the call. So, two deputies fired shots. It's under investigation by the TBI, and we have not got any video or any information has been released about the incident unlike the incident that happened, and the same day video in Minnesota was released in that incident. So why the public hasn't been given any information or any video about this incident, I don't know. It looks like that they would immediately put out information to let the public know what's going on in this area, to let people know what their law enforcement is doing. I'm not saying they did anything wrong. I have no idea. Based on the information as it is framed, that we have a suicidal woman with a gun. So it appears like they may have had to defend themselves, but we don't know. Why the standoff lasted for that many hours, it is unclear. And happened. So here's the scene of the incident, and so why it took them 6 hours to fire shots, and what changed in that 6 hours, we don't know. And that is what's under investigation by a government agency, by TBI. Even if they had any body cam footage, we don't even know that. So the public has been kept completely in the dark. Everybody's worried about a shooting by ICE in Minnesota, and the footage came out that day. So why is information being withheld from the public in this incident? And they claim it's being investigated by TBI. TBI is run by the governor. So it will be an investigation of the government by the government, and they will put out footage that they want you to see. There have been other shootings in Knox County, and I'm not saying they did anything wrong. I don't know. There have been other shootings in Knox County where they have killed people. They claim it's justified, and there's no body cam footage. So they had all the time in the world to have body camera footage here of the officers, and also there would be body camera footage apparently from Weigel's, because they have cameras so that they can record people if they rob people. So there should be body camera footage out and showing us what happened if it is justified. Now I don't know, it may be justified. The point I came here to show is this is the scene of the incident. Happened a few weeks ago. The names of the deputies have not been put out yet, justifiably. The name of the THP trooper that ran into another officer in J.D. Vance motorcade in Maryville, Tennessee, that happened a few weeks ago, has not been put out either. So they protect these officers, which is good. I agree with that. Pending investigation, we don't need to unduly risk their lives while the investigation is going forward. They may be completely innocent of any wrongdoing. When I was involved in an incident involving a death by someone in a high-speed pursuit that I did nothing to do with the pursuit, that happened just a few miles from this location, they put out my name and picture the next day of the pursuit unlawfully, somebody in the highway patrol. So I'm just saying, the rules to protect people were not followed in my case, because the government that is protecting these people put out a hit on Charles Van Morgan. So I am Unbiased News reporting from the scene with a honest, fair, unbiased scrutiny of government officials, because we don't know what their agenda is. If they want to hang out these officers, I guarantee you they'll hang them out, charge them for murder, and put them in jail, or say they did something wrong. If they want to say it's justified, if these deputies are in the end, then they'll say it's justified and clear them. Or it may be, quite frankly, that we will get the truth that they had every right to do what they did, and that it was a suicide incident and suicide by cop, which, let me tell you, 988, if you're having a mental health crisis, mental health issues, please call 988. It's 24/7. Mental health professionals will talk to you. Life is worth living, and there is help for you. Suicide is not the way. So 988 is the number to call. Or if you know someone in mental health crisis, then let someone know, talk to them, and reach out, because tragic incidences like somebody's death occurs. So if we can do anything, the value of human life, to protect human life, we need to do that, 988. So it took them 6 hours and 13 minutes. They had this area They got the call, had this area shut down from the time they got the call to the time that 2 deputies fired shots and ended this lady's life. Now, she may have threatened them. I don't know what changed. I don't know if they were tired of waiting or what the situation was, but 6 hours and 13 minutes after they got the call, they took her life, which is extremely unfortunate. The point of me being here, I'm showing you boots on the ground, unlike other news shows. This is unbridled news. I try to go to the scene of incidences, and also we're going to cover the system and how unequal it is, and also very important issue about the ICE shooting in Minnesota. A new update. An attorney here in Tennessee has put out information in a video yesterday explaining how that Minnesota can get around the law and not obey the supremacy clause of the United States Constitution. So Article 6, Clause 2 says that the federal government is supreme and federal officers, and they have a right to enforce the immigration laws across the entire United States in any city or county. The cities and counties cannot preempt federal law. Minnesota cannot stop federal agents from deporting illegal immigrants. That's the law of the land. That's the Constitution. And Minnesota is trying to stop immigration by propaganda and mass public opinion. And a Tennessee lawyer put out a video, and the video originally he put out is still on. It's interesting that he took down the video where he talked about the loop around weaponizing the legal system in Minnesota and how it can be weaponized nationwide. It's very interesting where they're trying to get around trying to tell states how they can get around immigration laws. A licensed attorney, how they can weaponize the legal system illegitimately and get around the law, even though the case would ultimately probably be dismissed in federal court. How states can still charge people and cities can still charge federal officers for enforcing immigration laws in any incident that happens, alleging that they acted outside the scope of their duties, trying to stretch that and trying to exploit the fact that they're in that city and using their laws against them illegitimately and charging them with state crimes, and thereby giving them the ride to jail, even though they would ultimately get out of it in federal court because the federal court's preemptive. So in his own words, giving them the ride, causing them trouble in enforcing our immigration laws, weaponizing the judicial system, which is a common thing, and he's just pointing it out how it's done, and it's done all the time against common citizens. The alarming fact is they're trying to weaponize the judicial system, weaponizing states' judicial system against federal law and preempt federal laws and federal rules that keep this country sovereign. So that video was put out, how he explained how to get around immigration laws. That video was put out just yesterday, and it was up. When I checked this morning, the video was taken down because what he was explaining is, under federal law, Article 6, Clause 2, immigration officials can go anywhere and enforce federal immigration laws. They cannot be regulated by cities and states because it's federal law. The federal government is supreme in the area of immigration. They have a right to solely control immigration. In fact, they can tell states that you cannot deport or you cannot get rid of illegal immigrants because federal law is supreme in the area of immigration. They control the borders. What this lawyer was saying is that in that incident in Minnesota where the ICE agent shot and killed a woman acting in self-defense, I believe very clearly a car going at him. I mean, if you're stopped by law enforcement, and they tell you to stop. I mean, it was very clear. Everybody heard stop and get out of the car, and you intentionally move forward at an officer. What do you think's going to happen to you? You're probably going to get shot. You may get lucky or not, But if you get shot, it's going to be justified, because you cannot shoot at law enforcement, or you can't drive a car at law enforcement. That's dangerous. What part of that do people not understand? When you're told to stop, fight them in court, which is what I do. Don't fight them on the street. They're gonna win that battle, and you might end up dead. Don't do that. So federal law enforcement is under attack by one of the most sacred things, protecting the sovereignty of this country, explained by an attorney put out on YouTube how state officials and city officials can charge federal officers with state crimes in every city and state in the United States of America. Wow, that's going to be ineffective, where they won't be able to do their job depending on what state they're in, depending on whether it's a city or county. Stay on board. We're going to explain that, and we're going to talk about inequality in the state of Tennessee. Boots on the ground. It's cold out here, but I want to bring you the news up close and personal with boots on the ground, not a screen where somebody else is reporting the news. And this is important, because we're talking about how powerful the government is, and I'm going to explain about inequality. So let's take a look at the scene here of the Knox County shooting incident, where a woman was died. People were concerned about Minnesota. A woman was killed. A woman was killed here at this scene right here in Knox County, Tennessee. You don't hear a lot of national attention about that. It's because in Minnesota, it is a national war on people that are invading this country. This was a citizen of the United States of America that was killed, and we have no video. We don't have any information about what happened or anything other than the news reports of information about the call and information that the sheriff's department put out in a written statement. We don't have any video footage. We don't have any information except for times and the call that came out in Minnesota, with federal authorities trying to enforce immigration laws that they have every right, and the Supremacy Clause says that cities and counties do not have any authority over federal officials. In fact, they would be violating the law, and they are, if they intervene in immigration enforcement. So that attorney put up a video. It's been taken down, interestingly. If I can find it, I will, but it's not on his page. Saying that, first day he put out a video saying that the officer acted out of malice when he shot the woman, because after she came forward, he fired shots because the car was coming forward. The wheels were pointed toward him. It lunged toward him. He immediately acted to fire shots. The wheel turned and she went the other direction after he had already fired shots. After the initial confrontation with his life in danger was already acted, and he doesn't have to wait around and make sure. And then when she hit him, they claim that he didn't drop his phone, that's a major issue, that he didn't drop his phone. You're acting out of instinct, and just because you didn't drop your phone and you can hear him getting hit, and he did get hit, that doesn't mean anything because he didn't drop his phone. It means he had a good hold on his phone, and you don't have to have two hands to fire a shot. Things happen the way they happen. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. And I don't believe that he did. I believe he acted in self-defense with a car coming at him. Somebody that should have stopped when they were told to, that on purpose or inadvertently went straight toward a immigration officer at a high rate of speed, lunged toward him, and was going toward him when the shots were fired, and the wheel was only turned after the first shot was fired, according to an expert in body language and how she acted at the scene. After he got hit, they're focusing on the fact that he called her a name. And he's trying to say that that's the attitude that he had when he fired the shot. But that's a time frame issue, because when he fired the shots is different than after the shots were fired. So he's trying to put that thing together. That's false propaganda. And he's trying to say, this attorney put out a video yesterday that was up for a few hours, trying to say that the federal law enforcement officers cannot be charged with any state crime unless, and this is the loophole that they're trying to weaponize the justice system, unless they're acting outside the scope of their duties. The scope of their duties is broad. They have a right, when someone is interfering under federal statutes, to intervene and conduct enforcement activities to allow them to continue to enforce immigration laws. It is obvious that lady was parked sideways in the road, inhibiting their ability to conduct federal law enforcement activities. So it was clearly within the scope of the performance of their duties. Now, had they went in their house without a warrant or something like that, that'd be completely different. But you're talking about where they're trying to weaponize the legal system in a state, giving them ideals, and the attorney is trying to do that, saying that they were acting outside the scope so they can charge them with a state crime instead of using their federal supremacy. And they had every right in the world to enforce immigration laws, and they were not acting outside the scope of their duties. And that attorney even realizes it, because he said that they can charge them. All they have to do is convince a state judge that they were acting outside the scope of their duties when they shot that lady. That puts them in the jurisdiction of state courts when they're acting outside the scope. If they're acting inside the scope of their ICE duties, the state does not have any authority over them. They have supremacy over state laws. If they're acting outside the scope of their ICE enforcement duties, which he says they're performing a traffic function that they have no authority to do, but they do have authority for trafficking functions if it's inside the scope of their job. Clearly, she was blocking the road. It was inside the scope of their job. She's trying to prevent them performing ICE duties from performing immigration laws. The woman at the back of the camera was even talking about that, even confronting them in a hostile manner. It was a hostile situation concerning ICE enforcement. They were even blocking them. So it had everything to do with the scope of their duties. They're trying to act like they were out for a Sunday afternoon drive and they just shot a woman that was parked wrongly in the road. That had nothing to do with ICE duties. Obviously, that is a far stretch. That's a lie. That's weaponizing law enforcement. That's what they're trying to do, weaponizing law enforcement in every city and state. And an attorney, a licensed attorney, that's subject to the bar regulations of putting that out. Now, somebody in the federal government must have told him, hey, look, bud, you want your law license? You're talking about weaponizing the legal system and stretching stuff? Because he even admitted that if they can convince a state judge that they're acting outside the scope, even if they weren't, they just have to convince a judge. So anywhere in any state, convincing a judge in any time something happens involving ICE enforcement, deporting illegal immigrants from this country, that's a serious, important thing. You don't have a country without a border. So trying to keep the United States from having a country, letting it be invaded by foreigners, and a lot of foreigners involved in this propaganda to be able to invade this country from an internal war and us not be able to do anything about it. How horrific is that? By using our own internal systems of fairness to exploit them to get around the supremacy of the United States government. Now, the Union Army won that battle with the Confederacy back in the 17th and 18th century. That is a done deal. The federal government is supreme. They don't do a lot of activity, but where they do, they're supreme. And one of the supreme activities of the federal government is enforcing our border laws to make a secure country from external invasion, which is what's going on. But he even admitted that they convince a judge, and they're going to be able to convince a judge. That's completely politics. Then ultimately, it would be appealed by the federal government to a federal judge. The federal judge would say they have jurisdiction, and it would probably be overturned under the supremacy clause. But his argument is that they would get the ride, so that it would cause federal enforcement authorities trouble, not justifiably, but even admitted, the attorney admitted that, well, they're going to get the ride, so we're going to cause them trouble for enforcing the law. Admitting, and that's the reason why the video is taken down, admitting that they're going to weaponize, giving Minnesota the fuel and an ideal. how to weaponize the legal system in the United States of America. Wow, how horrific, how horrific and dirty is that. Obviously, the video was taken down. I was alarmed when I heard that. Given states, every state in the United States is Democrat, most likely that is pro-illegal immigration in that position. A lot of them are wrong. The fuel and the mechanisms to illegitimately try to allow a external invasion of this country. How dare they do that? A Tennessee attorney, under bar regulations. I'm Charles Van Morgan. I am not a licensed attorney. I graduated from law school, passed the bar, have a doctor of jurisprudence. I have a law degree. And we may have to move. But I am not licensed. So although I have the same education as that attorney, I don't have to follow their rules of the bar rules, because they're biased in upholding the legal system. You can't say stuff and disparage the legal system if you're a licensed attorney, even if it's justified in some instances, because a lawyer is a member of the bar, a member of the legal system, an officer of the court. So they have to abide by legal rules, bar rules, that prevent them from disparaging judges and from disparaging the legal system. They have to uphold it, and they have to propagate that it is appropriate and fair and justified. Although I have the same education as a licensed attorney, passed the bar exam twice, the bar examiners have done me dirty and wrong, so I don't have to uphold a system that is crooked and dirty as hell. I can tell you the truth about it. I'm subject only to defamation laws. That is unprivileged, false communication disseminated to at least a third person, obviously over 1 million, that tends to lower someone in the standing community, that can cause people not to want to do business or to have any relationship with them. That's defamation. So I'm subject to that law. As far as public officials, people in the government, the standard is they have to prove, if I disparage somebody or disparage a judge or disparage the legal system, they have to prove that I acted with actual malice, because they're public officials, and under the law we have a right to criticize the government in the United States of America, because the First Amendment, the Constitution, allows us to disparage people in government power because they have power. We are allowed to say things bad about them, because if it is true, and even if it may be true, because they're in power, they influence a lot of people, so there's a lot of leeway in being able to criticize people in government power. The standard, if you're a private person, is if it's false and you suffer damages. So if I say something about somebody and it is false, and it causes them damage, then they can sue me for slander if it's spoken, or libel if it's written. That's a private person, somebody that doesn't put themselves out in the public. Maybe you or somebody that's not a government official, that's not a police officer, or somebody that's not in government, a politician, a private person that doesn't intentionally put themselves out in the public for public scrutiny. But if you're in public, a judge, a public official, a politician, the mayor of Minnesota, if you're a lawyer and you put yourself out on YouTube, you're publicizing yourself. A lawyer by itself is not a public official subject to defamation laws as a private person. That's well settled law. But if you're a lawyer and you put yourself out on YouTube, then you're a public person because you have initiated your public persona. So the defamation laws are different. If you're a public person, you put yourself out in the public, or by nature of your job, you're in the government, then if I say something about you, then you have to prove not that what I said was false. That's not enough. That's for a private person. You have to prove that I acted with a legal concept that's called actual malice. That's knowledge of the falsity of the statement or reckless disregard for the truth. That's a harder burden for people in the public to prove. So it could even be false, what I'm saying about people, although it's not, it's completely true. But if I didn't have actual knowledge of the falsity, or I didn't act with reckless disregard for the truth, I had some basis for what I was saying, some well-founded, good, logical basis for what I'm saying, even if it's later found out to not be true, then under the law, I cannot be sued civilly. I can be sued, but I would be exonerated because I have a legal basis for saying that. So people in public office and people in public power are wide open unless you know what you're saying is false and somebody can prove that in court, and that's a high burden to me. If you're a private person, all they have to prove is that what you said was false, that it was not true, and that you suffered some damages. Unless there's 5 protected classes, that if you defame someone about these 5 classes, it's presumed it's so bad that they said it about you, you don't even have to prove damages. If they say something about your job, because you could take your employment away, people won't want to hire you. If they call you a crook or a criminal, then you don't have to prove damages, because it's presumed that is so bad. If you're a woman and they call you a whore or something like that, criticizing the chastity of a woman, then it's presumed that you do suffer damages. That's so bad that you're going to suffer because of that. That's damages. Damages is loss. Or if they say you have a lonesome disease and you don't, then you don't even have to prove damages. Those things are considered so bad, those 4 categories, that you are presumed to have suffered damages, although that can be rebutted. But if you're a public official, the fact that it's false is not enough. You have to prove that the person acted with malice. That's, they knew what they were saying was false, or they acted with a reckless disregard for the truth, that they didn't even look into it. They had no sound basis for what they're saying. So this is a licensed attorney that knows defamation laws, that is telling people that they can bring up false charges that they know are false because they ultimately be overruled and by the federal courts, but telling them that they will get the right anyway to punish them for what they have a legal right to do. But I am not a licensed attorney, so I'm not bound by these rules that I have to uphold the judicial systems illegitimately. They can't say something about the judicial system, even if it's illegitimate. They have to act like it's legitimate, which is about 99% of the problem, which is why you have Charles Van Morgan. And I'm not going to tell you that the judicial system is legitimate, because it is not legitimate. It is crooked as hell. It's dirty as hell. And you have a licensed attorney telling you how people can get the ride, although the supremacy clause is clear, even though they didn't commit any crime. How dare they impede the ICE agents from enforcing the law, especially when their life was in danger, by explaining, and the video's taken down because he just explained how wicked the judicial system, by talking about how they can try to usurp the federal system of getting rid of illegal immigrants. So this channel is for people that want to know the real truth behind all the lies, behind all the false propaganda, from somebody that knows what they're talking about, and from somebody that looks into things and has a honest distrust for the government, because I know how they do. I know how they act. I've been in the government before for about 18 years and did a wonderful job for the public in 18 years, and I know how they disparaged me and used the judicial system that's illegitimate to lie on me. So when you have an incident happen, it may be like the government says, and the other side is it may absolutely not be. And the problem with that is when it is not, and you have to look at video with your own eyes, and they haven't showed us anything here, when it is not, you have a narrative that AI picks up, that Google picks up, that says false stuff about things, and you have a society and a method and newspapers and all this information that people get out of complete total lies that completely misleads the public in a lot of areas. So you have to look beyond the surface of what you're told. What AI tells you, what Google tells you could be a complete total lie, and what it says could be the exact opposite. Until you look at something and you're not swayed by the narrative that they tell you about that, you don't know what the truth is. You can type in Google and you can get a lie about somebody that's absolutely defamation and completely false. But if the dirty judicial system, like that lawyer has explained how to get around, how to weaponize the judicial system, has stepped in and somebody's convinced them to perpetrate a lie, like that lawyer convinced them to do, then you will have a system where you don't know what's true because it's false and it is legitimized by a crooked, dirty, nasty judge. That happens all the time in the state of Tennessee. I'm not going to, and I don't have to uphold a illegitimate judicial system. I'm not going to. I am bound by the rules of defamation, which hold me to an actual malice standard in running down the judicial system in the state of Tennessee. I am very confident that before a jury of my peers to say that the Tennessee judiciary and the people that may ultimately decide what was right or wrong, in this case here at Weigel's, is completely dirty, corrupt, crooked, doesn't have very many honest rulings. Most of the rulings that they give are completely false, and they are for people in power, not the mass population of Tennessee, and probably in your state it's the same way. I think I could win defamation lawsuits on the actual malice standard, and I'm completely confident in saying that. That is not a weapon. That is a defense against what they're trying to say. So they probably did you a favor by not allowing me to represent you in a courtroom, because I would have to uphold their lies by not licensing me, putting me out here on the street and tell you what really happened. So if you want an opinion from an unbiased, realistic, educated, experienced person who's been on the inside, got the same education, I've been trained at their Army law schools, which is their law schools, and I have a right to do what I'm doing, and I'm on your team. I'm not on their team. Trust me, I'm not on their team, because their team is full of corruption, full of lies, like that lawyer is telling people how to get around laws by weaponizing the legal system, which is what they do every day. And if they can get a judge to sign off on it, you'll pick it up on Google, you'll pick it up on AI, and it's told like it's a narrative that's the truth, when it's exactly the opposite of what they are saying. And that is so wrong. It hurts the mass public. It hurts you. Your legal system in Tennessee is not for you. You don't go in there to get justice. It is not blind. It's got both eyes wide open, looking at the money, looking at who's got the most money. You look at people that have a lot of money. They got money to spend on advertising. You see car dealerships and you see attorneys. Because the money that's involved in the legal system that goes to attorneys. Attorneys all over this United States have gotten mandatory insurance laws that keep raising the cost of insurance, that get millions and millions of dollars paid into insurance programs. And lawyers are behind that. They want you to pay high insurance premiums to build up that bucket of money so that they can, when there's a small injury, somebody gets a scratch, they get millions of dollars from their clients. And judges approve this stuff and put this stuff before juries that never should have been there in the first place, with almost unlimited, in a lot of cases, amount of damage that somebody gets for a small crime. And there's a cost to that. It's not costing the judicial system. They're getting flooded with money that they mandate that you have to pay. The cost of that is you, citizens, that are required to get insurance, and somebody has to pay for that bucket of money. It's not the lawyers that are paying for that bucket of money. They're getting a lot of money out of that bucket. They want it filled, and they run the judicial system, and they run the system that puts cases over to juries, and they run the decisions, and they run the legislature, and they have a lot of money, and they buy legislators, and they buy the system, and you pay, and these lawyers, these liars, they get a lot of money from your insurance policy, because they get it out of the bucket when they have a fake case before courts, and then they go to judges in re-election campaigns, and they contribute to the judge's re-election. So of course they're going to listen to them, and when you come in there defending yourself, they're not going to listen to you, because you're not paying them money. It's all about the money. Follow the money. In the Bible, if you're a spiritual person, and I am, it says money is the root of all evil. Power and money are synonymous. The whole judicial system needs to be reformed. It's crooked as hell. It's a system based on them exploiting you, exploiting the hell out of you. And they get money, and they're going to continue getting money unless we stop them. Unless we stop them from doing that. So you're getting ripped off if you're working harder than ever and still falling behind. This is not because you failed, it's because it is a rigged system by the judiciary, and you have an attorney that just explained how they can exploit and use the judiciary as a weapon by convincing a judge to charge a federal officer, even though they have no case, no jurisdiction, but how to get around that just by convincing a judge. And that's what they do all the time, convincing a judge to perpetrate a lie. They stamp the weight on lie by a dirty judge, and Tennessee's got some of the dirtiest judges in the whole nation. I believe this is the wickedest, most corrupt state because of the Tennessee judiciary. They're crooked, and I've experienced it, and I know how they lie. They told me I was dishonest, although I told the truth. I had never been convicted of any crime, let alone an infamous crime of dishonesty, while one of the judges was committing a federal crime of theft for thousands and thousands of dollars. Wow. So you're being adjudicated by crooks that call you a crook when you haven't done anything wrong. That's how dirty the judiciary is. That's why I'm out here on the sidewalk arguing for your rights against the dirty judiciary. Had they let me in, I would have had to stomach the lies. I'm glad they didn't. I won't stomach lies. I'll tell you the truth that you won't hear anywhere else. Unbridled News, Charles Van Morgan. I won't lie to you. An attorney should not convince and explain to people on YouTube, he's taking it down now, how to manipulate the federal system to bring charges against people, ICE officers that are trying to defend their lives. So we'll continue with this, and I'll explain to you how dirty the system is, how it works against you. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you like this message from a unlicensed somebody that has a doctor of jurisprudence, that knows the law front and backwards, passed the bar twice, and they'll never give me my law license. Not because I'm not honest, because I wouldn't represent you in a courtroom, because I am honest and I won't stomach the lies, and because I'm being blackballed for doing the right thing, and I'm a fighter, so I'll stand out here and do news and report against the government, and will expose the hell out of them. And the point behind all this, is not violence. It's not violence. It is peaceful protest by voting. It does no good, in my opinion. It does show some public support, but public support for something doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. You can stand on the sidewalk all day long and hold up signs. It doesn't change who is in public power. The theme of this show is Unbridled News, to convince you to vote. Voters of truth in race, to present the truth against the judiciary and against the government that is so stacked up against you. The biggest lie ever sold to working Americans is this: if you work hard enough, you'll get ahead. The truth is, you can only go as far as people in government power allow you to go. They have control, and they won't let you get more than what they want you to get, because they want what you got. They got a boot on your neck, and they won't let you get up no matter what you do. That is the problem. A lot of people don't have to convince of that. A lot of people know that. A lot of people feel that. I'm here to tell you, if you feel that way or think that might be true, That is absolutely the truth. That you cannot get ahead because they won't let you get ahead, because they are like leeches. They're sucking the very life out of Americans. Right now, allowing illegal immigrations, allowing us to be invaded from the outside in, and using people in the populace to propagate propaganda to facilitate this illegal invasion of America that's going on, explaining to people, a lawyer, how to charge a federal officer, even though they have no jurisdiction, explain how to get around that, knowing ultimately that they'll win just for causing them the trouble, which is exactly what they do. If you do right, if you stand up against the system, they cause you trouble, which is exactly what they caused me. Evidently, they haven't caused me enough, and they're never going to cause me enough. I'm going to keep telling the truth and keep fighting them, because there's more of us than them. We can put pressure on them, and I'll explain to you about voting. Doesn't matter about how quality of the candidates. If we show up in mass and vote, they fear voting. It's what they fear. They don't fear people standing out on the sidewalk holding signs. I think that's funny myself. A few people stand on the sidewalks, even if it's 100, a couple of thousand, does nothing. It points out who the idiots are, if you ask me. Anybody holding an I sign and promoting the invasion of this country is somebody I need to be aware of, that I will avoid. That's my own personal opinion, and I will vote to uphold our immigration laws and the sovereignty of this country. They have a boot on your neck and they won't let you get up no matter what you do. We don't have a real capitalism. We don't have capitalism. We don't have socialism. We have socialism at the top is what we have. We have free money and protection for the top and sacrifice for everyone else. The reason that you can't get ahead, and I also have a Master of Arts degree, I know what I'm talking about, and people that don't have a degree understand this too. People repeat the same stuff I'm saying, that I got an education that tells me. I have a Master of Arts in sociology with an emphasis in criminology from the University of Tennessee. But the stuff I learned, I already knew. It just exemplified and explained a little better. People know, I've talked to people all over the state of Tennessee, the rich get richer and the poor get prison. People know that. The rich get ahead, get richer and richer, and the poor get nowhere, get what they got taken away, and it gets harder and harder on poorer people, or people that aren't influent, people that aren't privileged, unjustifiably given everything for nothing, and people that earn stuff, it's taken away from them. People don't have to have an advanced degree in sociology to know that's the truth. I happen to have an advanced degree, and I know that's the truth from science. So if you believe that, feel that, you're absolutely right. You didn't even need a degree, you figured it out. We have free money and protection from the top and sacrifice for everyone else. And today I'm going to show you why income inequality keeps growing, why people are overreacting in the wrong direction, and why voting still matters. Voting still matters, even in a society where we don't have the best candidates. It still matters. And I'm going to explain all that today at the scene of a fatal shooting, to show you the power that we need to get a hold of. The power of state, city, state, and federal government is that they have the power to take human life and decide themselves whether or not it's justified or not. And you have little hand in deciding that. It's decided at a much higher level and not based on what really happened a lot of times. So we need to get control of that and start voting for the truth. Voters of truth enraged, and then after we start winning elections, and we can do that. Trust me, we can. There's much more of us than that. Only a small part of people decide this travesty. Then it'll be voters of truth encouraged. So if you want to be a part of this movement nationwide, from unbridled news, showing up at the scene, talking about this stuff in real time and in truth, not unbridled, not bound by their crooked. I'll point their crooked out. I'm not afraid of them. I fear God, not man. Then join and subscribe to this channel and support it, and help me put out the real news, the real fighter with boots on the ground. So that's what I did all my life. That's my forte. That's my calling. Thank you all so very much for your. When the candidates are bad, we still can vote, and numbers in voting that they have to pay attention. Income equality keeps because the system rewards ownership over effort, and protects ownership with the law. They protect ownership with the law above work. Everything else flows from that. So the biggest lie ever told to working Americans, if you work harder than ever before and you're still falling behind, you're not lazy and you're not imagining things. The biggest lie ever told working Americans is work harder and you can get ahead. But if you're working harder than ever before and still falling behind, you're not lazy and you're not imagining things. The system is no longer based on effort and value. It's based on access to power, access to illegitimate power. It's not legitimate. It doesn't serve the purpose that it's designed to serve. Yes, I said that, and that is true. People feel that, they think that. Now you got somebody telling you that, not from an official position, somebody that can't be in an official position, because I tell you the truth, at the scene of a fatal incident involving the government taking somebody's life. Whether it's legitimate or not, we may never know, and we should know. Why isn't video released in this incident when the federal government released the incident within hours? Numerous. A small percentage of the population controls most of the wealth, not because they work harder, but because the rules protect them. They get free money. Here's what people in power get. Here's what they're protecting. When they get your vote, they lie to get your vote. Here's what they're protecting. They're protecting free money that goes to them. They're protecting the government jobs. They're protecting bailouts. They're protecting asset protection. They're protecting tax advantages. Courts that work for them in their favor against you, even if you're right. Even if they're a criminal, they'll adjudicate that you're a criminal while they're committing a crime. I mean, that's not an exploitation of the truth. That is a fact. That is why I don't have my law license, and it just doesn't affect me. They do the same thing to you every day. Look at your bills. They're going up. 10% of the population own the government. They own 80% of the wealth. 10% of the population own 80% of the wealth. That means only 30% of the population own about, or 90% of the population only own about 30% of the wealth. So that's socialism in reverse. Socialism is only for the rich. So people are worried about people getting food stamps, and people are worried about socialism, people not working and getting a free ride. But the socialism is not a concern at the bottom. You're talking about a few pennies here and there relative to the whole economic system. The socialism is not from the bottom that's a problem. If you cut out all welfare benefits, it would not be a drop in the bucket. It's only a small percentage. The problem with socialism is people in power, the super wealthy, getting free money, getting free bailouts. That's what's a burden on society. That's what raises your cost of living. So it's socialism in reverse. Meanwhile, working people are told, and this is what we're told, work harder, go to law school, pass the bar, pass it again, keep trying to go through their rules. It's not going to work for you. They don't play by rules. They lie. They're dirty. They're robbers. They cheat. They steal. They're crooked as hell. They're influenced by Satan and demons a lot of times. If you listen to my show yesterday, work harder, pay more, get less. Trust the system. Yeah, trust the. You believe that? Don't trust the damn system. The system is for them. It's not for you. It's a rigged, crooked system for them. People see things, injustice everywhere. That's why we're seeing, and people see this. I'm not selling something that people don't buy, because it's the truth. It is valuable to you to understand that the system is so biased against you and crooked as hell. And people know that. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I've been told that 100 times across the state of Tennessee when I knocked on thousands of doors. And that's the reason why this channel is built up. I'm a fighter. I don't quit. I have go on faith a lot of times when you don't see things panning out the way you know that it will eventually. You hope that. You pray and hope and go forward and carry the banner of truth. The system is wicked as hell. Do I have to convince you people that? I mean, I'm saying that the system is crooked, built in their favor to exploit you. That is the truth from somebody that has an advanced level of knowledge in sociology and how social things work that people already know. And people see things unjustly. They know that. That is why that we have in New York City a self-proclaimed socialist mayor elected. Wow. And I wondered, how does that happen? It's because what I'm saying, people know. People know that we have a system that's trying to stop socialism, free money at the top. They don't see it as a problem from the bottom. A lot of people do. That's what the government tries to convince you of, that the problem is you. The problem is the poor people. They're poor because the people in government power are sucking all the wealth. So we have an incident where we have a socialist, self-proclaimed socialist mayor in the biggest city in the United States of America because of overreaction. That's an overreaction. We don't want socialism. We don't need socialism. We don't need socialism at the top. We don't need socialism at the bottom. We need truth. We need a fair system that rewards hard work and doesn't benefit just switching money around to where they extract money from hardworking people and don't deserve it, where work and value to society is rewarded like it should be. So we have an overreaction in New York where they have elected a socialist, self-proclaimed socialist. And that is going too far. I'm not socialist. This show explains why income equality keeps gaining, why hard work alone is no longer enough, how people get rich without creating value. And that's why people see that in New York City, and that's why they've elected a complete socialist. That's going too far. That's not right either. How courts protect wealth instead of work, why voting still matters even when candidates are bad. This is not left versus right. This is about work. This is about you, hardworking mass population, and some people that can't find a job and some people that aren't able to work. It's not socialism. It's a fair society that takes care of people that can't take care of themselves. This is about work. This is about the populace. This is about all of us versus them that have the power to take your life, maybe justifiably. I'm not saying, I don't know in this situation. I'm boots on the ground where it literally happened. The government took somebody's life. It took them about 6 hours to decide what happened. We don't know. We may never know. I'm talking about power versus work versus all of you. The workers need to get the power back. And that's what this show is about. That's what work's about. That's what we're about. The lie, the promise you work hard, you'll get ahead. Reality, productivity is up. Wages are stagnant. The cost of everything is astronomical. I've never seen it in my lifetime. Super, super high. Wow, what? I mean, you go to the grocery store and things are 3 times more than it was 3 years ago. What's the explanation for that? Exploitation by the rich above you. Exploitation by people in government power that are robbing you blind. It's the government. It's people in government power robbing you. That's the truth. Effort still matters, but permission matters more. You have to have their permission to get what you deserve. Are you going to get it? Not unless you vote. So the numbers. So we have the top 10% own about 80% of the wealth, and the bottom 90% own about 20% of the wealth. So these 10% control most of the money, and it's not just money. Wealth does not just equal cash. It's not just money laying around. Wealth equals control of assets, land, courts, policy. So about 10% of the people own the government, they own the courts, they own the assets, they own the power, and the rest of us, the 90%, own only a small portion of that. Even though there's more, but we have something that they don't have. More votes. They only have 10% of the votes. That 10% lies to a lot of the percent to get in power, but we have 90% of the votes all across this country. That's why voting matters. get up and vote. Wake up and pay attention. A lot of you are already awake. You just need to be encouraged, I believe. And I've been guilty of this too. Every election, get registered and vote. Promote voting. Drive people to the polls. Let's take this government back. Not by voting, not by holding out signs and standing out and yelling on the street. By getting registered. If you're not registered, if you're registered, then that's great. Telling other people, asking other people to get registered if they're not registered, getting your car full and going to the polls and just voting. It doesn't matter if we have a perfect candidate. We need to show them that we are a force to be contended with when we have the mass populace start voting, voters of truth enraged. Then we will get encouraged because they will start listening to your signs when you hold them up that, hey, these people matter because they laugh at you right now. You can hold up signs and they know you'll never go vote. Only a very small portion of society votes. It doesn't matter. You're out there holding up a sign. They don't care. They think you're funny. They know where you're at. You're not at the polls. So don't hold up a sign. Put down your sign and go vote. And if you're somebody that stands against the sovereignty of this country, keep your signs up. Keep protesting us. That's fine. Well, at least I know who you are. I hope you're too stupid to vote. And if you believe in the invasion of this country, then I hope you're not smart enough to vote. So this isn't money in the bank. This is power. So 10% of the people own the power, own the courts, own everything, own the ability to take your life. And they very well might do it if they see the need. Justifiably or unjustifiably. It happens all the time. The government's not honest. They lie to you about stuff, manipulate stuff, don't show the video, lie about facts, lie. They're full of lies. A lot of them are demonic influenced and possessed. And the way we can avoid that is voting. How people get rich without creating value. This is what they do. They own the government. This is the missing explanation most shows never give you. They tell you everything's honest, the government's fair. Google something to find out. Google something and you'll find out the lie that the establishment wants you to believe. Usually, if it's in Google, it could be the exact opposite. Wealth today grows by moving money, shifting assets, values, leveraging debt, holding land idle, financial engineering. So the 10% that own most of what you got. They own you, almost. We're a free people, but are you? They own you by manipulating the system, by moving stuff around, not by working. They don't move anything. They don't benefit anything. They don't create any value. In fact, they create disvalue. They're in the opposite direction. They're leeches. They're sucking off you. The hard-working people that provide value, services, that move the economy, move society, things that have to be done are not done by these 10% that have everything for nothing. And that's what we need to vote against. So if you're working hard, it's not because you're not smart, you're not working hard enough. It's because these people in government power have manipulated the system to manipulate you and do nothing and take your value, extrapolate that, and they're running society. And they're running the economy. And it is preventable by voting. So workers create value, asset handlers extract value. A lot of modern wealth is not created, it's extracted. Valueless. The people that are super rich, these billionaires, did not create any value to have that money. They should not have it. That's not fair. It's socialism at the top. It's not right. It will crash this country. It will crash this society, much like illegal immigration. This isn't illegal, it's legal. They even make it legal. They've made the laws. But it's not productive. When money makes more money than work makes money, the system breaks. Extraction by design. That's what it is. You won't hear that. You won't hear that anywhere else. That's the truth. That's the truth. In the Bible Belt, the thinking that if you don't work, you don't eat, and people want to blame the poverty and lack of health care and the problem on, well, people don't work. What if you work and you don't eat? That's what's going on. That's exactly what's going on. You don't work and you don't have anything hardly. And it is by design. It's because people at the top don't work and they have your value and they create none. That's the truth. Master of Arts in Sociology, people know that. The rich get richer and the poor get prison. I've changed that to the rich get richer and the poor get executed. And it's a book by Jeffrey Ryman, The Rich Get Richer and the Poor Get Prison. Why inequality keeps growing. Income inequality keeps growing because ownership beats work. Inflation punishes wages and the law protects assets. It protects their land, their hundreds and millions of acres that sit idle, that increase in value, that they need to turn loose and needs to be productive. Inflation hurts workers. Assets inflate upward during inflation. Courts enforce ownership, so courts enforce their valueless society. Policy favors stability for capital, not people. Their policies don't favor people, it favors their policies that benefit them. That's just the proof. So it's called socialism for the truth. Bailouts, subsidies, risk removal at the top. Losses, socialism upward. This is not socialism for the poor, it is socialism for the powerful. People are so worried about somebody getting food stamps down the street. They want them to work. And that's a drop in the bucket compared to the billions of dollars that these corporations get that exploit you. You're working for nothing. People in the Uber business, no medical insurance, working for poverty wages, one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, while corporate people sitting in office do nothing and get billions. And our government protects that policy of allowing that to happen. That shouldn't happen. Fair wages for fair work. The overreaction in New York City is an example of, people see this. I'm not selling something that, I'm not convincing people of anything. They already know it. You're not stupid, you already know this. People see injustice correctly. They react emotionally. And in New York City, they've swung too far. Let's do it fairly. Let's don't give out money for nothing to even people that are poor. Make people work for things. And if you don't work, you don't eat. That's right. People get hungry enough to work. But if you work, you eat. That's what I'm concerned about. If you work, you get. And what's happening is we work and people in government power, people that have the authority to kill you, get. That's not right. And we need to stop that. That will break America. And it is breaking it now along with illegal immigration. They diagnosed the disease correctly, but they sold the wrong care. Socialism doesn't work. It doesn't work at the top. It doesn't work at the bottom. The bottom is not a drop in the bucket. The problem is the people at the top. Courts and judges. Judges elected with money. They protect property over people. Justice delayed is justice denied. Inequity survives because it's enforced by our dirty, crooked judges in the state of Tennessee that decide elections over the populace in a lot of cities. In 2 different cities in Tennessee, judges have taken sheriffs out of office through the illegitimate judicial system above people that voted them in. When candidates are bad, voting is an endorsement, but it is a show, a warning to them. Voting equals pressure. So even if we got bad candidates, if we show up in droves, the number of people vote, it shows these people that you better listen to the populace. Where now they know the voting levels are so low, they don't have to listen to people. They have to listen to their proxy people that they've already talked to that they know are going to vote for them because they've offered them benefits, and they don't have to listen to everybody else. They know they're not going to show up to vote. So if they see the voting rise, that mass millions and millions of people show up to the polls, then they know, hey, we've got to listen to these people. So when they see the protests, they'll start listening because they know they vote. Right now they know protesters don't vote because it doesn't show up in the numbers at the polls that they can count. They can count how many people on the sidewalk, and that many people aren't at the polls, so they know they don't vote. Judges can be removed by voting. They're not removed by holding up a sign. Participation signals threat. Voters of truth and rage. We need to vote. We can make a huge difference. They will fear us if we show up in numbers at the polls. Low turnout is consent. Holding up a sign is consent. People omit turning to socialism. People aren't turning to socialism because they hate work. They're turning to it because they see free money at the top. The system doesn't need you to agree. It needs you to quit. It needs you to not vote, which is what's happening. So they don't care because people have quit. Power only listens when it feels threatened. We need to threaten them, not with violence, not like things that they do, but with voting. Have I convinced you to vote? I hope so. Subscribe to the channel. Show me the love today, and hit the like icon. Show me, vote today that you appreciate what I'm saying. People aren't asking for free money. They're asking for a fair system, and that's what I'm asking for. I'm demanding a fair system. I'm speaking out about it in this state, in this nation, in this country, under our First Amendment Constitution. I have every right to demand and speak out and call the criminals out that are in government power, call the crooks out, tell you specifically what crimes they committed, and I will do that. Unbridled News, Charles Van Morgan, and ask people to vote, and I'm going to keep doing that, and there's not a damn thing that they should be able to do about it legally. Now, they have caused me trouble illegally. I actually was arrested for speaking the truth to power, but it didn't work out well for them because I fight back. You don't need perfect candidates, you need participation. Don't worry about the perfect candidates. Show them that we will show up in force in this next election for governor's race in the state of Tennessee. Show up by the millions in Tennessee and make your vote for your decision. I would recommend you vote for people that are pro-life and pro taking money away from the people in power and serving power. But if you show up, vote for whoever you feel necessary by the masses, then it will show them they have to listen to us. This is a Republican state. Things are changing. In Tennessee, in a Republican gerrymandered area, a Democrat, extreme Democrat, almost won. So because people are angry about the system. They're angry at Democrats and repulsive against both, and they should be. So now is the time we can stand up and we can make a huge difference. If you don't engage the system, it never has to change. Power never reforms itself. It only moves when people refuse to be ignored. We need to refuse to be ignored. So thank you all so very much for your time. We'll try to be back on here tomorrow. Charles Van Morgan Live, boots on the ground. Get out and vote this next election. If you're not registered, register. And we'll try to come back with another show tomorrow morning about 6:30, 6:45. Any news happening, we'll try to show up live on the scene. Charles Van Morgan, Unbridled News, the truth teller. As I always try to say, God loves you, and I do too.